explode. I'm gonna explode. I'm gonna explode, 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 explode!
What's up with Pips? A reflection on a grueling experience in my first consulting gig. Background: my first engineering grad job. In my first position straight out of university, I was given the chance to join a consultancy in construction project delivery, which specialised in time claims and disputes, cost disputes, project management, and programming and scheduling. In plain English, they often employed recent project management, architectural and engineering grads in broad recruitment schemes with only a couple days of official onboarding modules before getting deep into the other end of the pool to do work on massive active infrastructural projects, providing advice and analysis to make sure they ran on time and on budget, or reviewing past documents and data for settling legal disputes between parties such as commissioners and contractors to see who was more at fault when projects went belly up. I personally worked on a dispute in the New South Wales regional rail fleet, which, much like how our Liberal government erroneously picked a certain Spanish contractor in Acciona, which did us for several $100 million in the Sydney light rail delays, another Spanish contractor in CAF did us for another several $100 million more in lawsuits for a couple of train redesigns mid-contract. This is all public knowledge if you choose to look up the New South Wales regional rail bungle and the New South Wales light rail bungle of a similar nature. Obviously, whilst it was our government's fault for screwing up major amounts of oversight, partly due to previous outsourcing of crucial engineering services to consultants like us who love a buck in the first place, it was fairly obvious from the programs for delay that they offered in comparison to the original program for delivery they quoted, that in true Mediterranean fashion, they overpromised and made us comfortable, and then stubbed a toe or two and held us responsible for a shattered femur. In other words, on the project cases I reviewed, they had cooked the books for about an extra 3 months' worth of unaccountable activities, such as installing miscellaneous mechanical parts for over 100 days, when originally they said it would only take 1. My first 6 months of my career wasn't even in engineering. It was at Never Been Crappier, NBC, project delivery. This is an obvious parody for legal reasons. Where it all stuffed up for me as a junior was in my first 2 months when I made a few crucial errors which they never let me hear the end of for 3 straight grueling months later. 1. I enjoyed the company food and culture days too much, and the social events. I even made French niçoise salad to try and impress everyone when except me and maybe one other person ate it. Next, I took a little too long on online modules when my brain would freeze up with not too much to do between paid jobs, which, mind you, I all had a timesheet anyway. Next, I had taken 2 days leave before and after Easter to go to Launceston with some friends during my probationary period, which HR still approved. Next, we were rushing to get a set of diagrams out for a presentation to transport for New South Wales executives, which I had to edit in Microsoft Word diagram editor, i.e. the one where you make something too big and everything moves at once, which takes at least 10 minutes to fix. This drove my OCD and related performance anxieties through the roof, and my attention to detail in what I was meant to include in the diagram went through the floor as a result. Finally, I once did push-ups in the office, which I never did again. Despite all this obvious 23-year-old rookie eccentricity, I felt like they should have cut me some slack. But holy shit, was it only the beginning? Mr. Gollum's progress needs to be monitored carefully. I had a mentor at NBC Project Delivery Consultants who was essentially just a glorified hall monitor for upper execs to gauge your progress as a junior in the open plan office hot desk, where we were all just runts of the litter sharing space with literal 19-year-olds who had just happened to finish an internship in some construction company somewhere. My mentor was a country New South Wales Aussie Ocker personality, which I mostly feel like he put on, who previously worked as a builder and had the demeanour of a previous Prime Minister of ours, who essentially only won because of his lovable footy fan suburban dad look.
Oh, yeah, mate. I love footy, and I'm heaps relatable. How can you tell? Not like there's ever been a camera nearby.
He essentially, in high school girl fashion, would mine the criticisms previous bosses had of me, from mild to harsh, and would provide no real constructive feedback beyond, this person thinks this about you, and you better shape up, whatever that meant. When it came to my 3-month performance review, he asked for a compilation of all the tasks I'd done for everyone I'd worked for, and to assess my own work for its strengths and weaknesses, which I got some happy feedback from him of doing a thorough and honest job of. But I never got a copy of the comments from his end until I stumbled upon his desk. Not technically allowed, but I felt like I hadn't had much transparency. And it said, Mr. Gollum's progress needs to be monitored carefully. Whatever in living hell that meant as well. I'd approached HR in concern for what he felt about me, and with the request of possibly mediating some understanding meeting between us because I was genuinely upset that I was misunderstood. This was my first mistake because unlike teachers at high school and university administrators you actively pay money to, who are paid to find a mutual solution, HR is the enforcer of the company agenda and to protect the company. And in this case, it meant putting me on a PIP, which they warned would be hard and had no guarantee of having a job at the end of, even if you said you tried your best in it. Well, as one might think, at least they were being honest. The image I provide is an example document template for a performance improvement plan, PIP. The Fair Work Commission provides this, but the action section of the table are barely ever implemented from experience, and it is just stated to have been followed because no one needs to prove anything to a kangaroo court, as one might know. The next following 3 months invoked fortnightly meetings of what I felt like were Clockwork Orange-style grilling and re-education, sans the classical music, restrictive chair apparatus, and presentation slides. Nonetheless, it was a painful, draining mindfuck of my hall monitor mentor and the middle-aged HR lady constantly dismissing any good work I did, which I raised as a marker of improvement, and a reiteration of the stuff I hadn't repeated, or problems I declared were a diagnosed symptom of my OCD I actively got therapy for, and one mathematics lecture I watched to supplement my training because the online modules I felt didn't particularly lead me anywhere. She wasn't the lovely Jordanian that recruited me, by the way, but the old Amina one who would non-stop talk about her 2-year-old to abruptly end one-on-one meetings I'd organized, where I might express my concern about the process. Interpret that as you will, but it felt like it was like good HR, bad HR, as some kind of informal strategy on the part of the company. Discussing this article with my fellow Australian project-based industry friend, The Emergent City, on Substack, he remarked that it was a rather interesting angle which HR has, since they are often put in the position of being the enforcers of work capitalism, in tandem with the propaganda arms of PR and marketing, if you want to call it that imaginatively, in the corporate world, they will still use an employee's mental health and vulnerability against them as a means to fire them and deprive them of their dependence on them, rather than find strategies to make them profitable again long term. It was only through enough demonstrable complaining and open emotional breakdown to showcase that I wasn't coping or happy with what they were doing that they could see that they were going too far. It made me think of scenes where a kid getting beaten up is pulped and bloodied, lying down with a black eye, before another bully in the gang with a mild amount more heart says, "Bro, he's had enough." How much more did I actually need at this point? I was eventually given a 24-hour notice that they were going to fire me, and if I took the chance to resign, they'd offer me support service for outplacement given to retrenched workers. I promptly took it and sent it in my letter that evening. Happy ending of outside support to repeated failures. The next day, I was given some pamphlets to another career coach and outplacement advisor with whom I am friendly today and who reads this blog. I was among his first clients who recently graduated in highly qualified fields, who were dismissed with performance-related issues because of poor mentorship and resourcing for neurodivergence-related conditions such as OCD or autism spectrum disorder. He told me in our first conference call that I was an impressive young guy, and it was quite shocking I'd been through this, but it should be a warning that PIPs are like a road to oblivion, where only about 5 to 15% of people who are statistically successful in, if I remember correctly. He offered me a lot of support in addition to extra support I've gotten from my union and my career coach, who I've invested in, who helps people with neurodivergence settle in with working-related issues in workplace environment communication styles. This is a happy ending, despite the fact I've now been through 5 3 to 6 month probationary churn and burns across 3 different industries of consulting and project management and dispute forensics, fire safety engineering, and fire resistance laboratory testing. As in the fact, I have a highly broad and unique set of skills, but I have a couple of qualities which I have been actively working on for 4 years straight, which have constantly led to me getting pulped. I'm hoping soon something good comes out of this, and I'm sitting in some comfy government job or multidisciplinary firm somewhere. We'll have to wait